Eagles running back Miles Sanders has been ruled out for Sunday's season opener against Washington with a hamstring injury and will not make the trip with the team. So joining me now for a fantasy side of this is SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano. And Fabs, does this news make Boston Scott a must start in fantasy this week?
I don't know about must start, but pretty darn close. This is why you handcuff your top running backs, especially during a pandemic with no preseason and the infamous now soft tissue injuries are hurting a lot of fantasy owners. Scott had some really good performances late last season. He had two big games against the Giants, including a Week 17 game where he absolutely went off, had almost 36 fantasy points. Also had just fewer than 13 fantasy points against Washington in a game in the second half of last year. The football team last year gave up the fourth most fantasy points to running backs on their home field. And that makes Boston Scott a guy who not only is going to see volume, but he's got a great matchup as well. And right now on DraftKings, he's $4,800. So that's basically like stealing Boston Scott. So make sure you get him into your DK lineups as well. But right now in traditional redrafts, I have Boston Scott as my RB16.
Wow. So if Sanders owners, though, haven't handcuffed Boston Scott, who's a waiver wire pickup that you'd suggest to fill that hole?
There's not going to be much. It's going to be tough out there unless you're in a non-competitive league. James Robinson could potentially be out there. Probably not. You could potentially pick up Corey Clement, but at that point, you're really hoping and praying that something happens where Boston Scott is a bit limited in this contest. That's not likely to happen. So really, hopefully what you can do is you can move another running back into that RB2 spot and then use a flex position to fill that empty spot, which means maybe you can add a wide receiver, maybe you can use a tight end or someone like that, because if you're looking to the waiver wire running back, it's probably going to be tough sledding.
Yeah, well, the good news for Sanders owners is that the team says he is progressing well, but the Eagles want to make sure he's good for the long haul, so they're playing it safe, keep the big picture in mind. SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano, thank you so much for the time.
You got it.